Hi friends, come on in. How is everyone today? We're going to build today's winter wreath on an 18-inch grapevine base. This actually came from Michael's. For those of you that are new to Stillwater's Wreath Designs, this channel is all about DIY step-by-step wreath tutorials. We've got new tutorials uploading every single week, so if you like that sort of thing, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join us. And for those of you that have been here on the channel for a while, thank you for coming back. I so appreciate all of you. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dive in. Just a real quick note here, all of the materials and tools that we'll be using in today's tutorial will be listed for you below in the description of this video so that you can recreate this beauty if you'd like to do so. If you'd rather just purchase today's wreath that we make together in the tutorial, I'll leave my Etsy shop link for you as well. We're going to build today's wreath on an 18-inch round grapevine. You can use any size and shape that you'd like. So go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun so that it can be heating up while we clean up our base. And so if you're new to working with grapevine wreaths, friends, they like to shed and they come to you a little bit, squirrely, I guess is the best way to describe it. And so the very first thing I do when I'm creating a wreath on a grapevine base is give it a haircut. So I've grabbed my small crafting snips and my heavy duty snips to just work my way around this wreath to trim off any pieces that are sticking out and just basically are loose or don't belong. So we're going to work our way all the way around our wreath, give it a good trim. Make sure you flip it over and do the same thing to the back. And then I'll meet you back here. Now that we've got our grapevine wreath all trimmed up, let me just give you a little pro tip, guys. I usually just take a look at my grapevine wreath and whichever side is the flattest, I usually put towards the back side so that it lays nicely against my or my customer's door. You're going to want to keep your large and small snips handy, your hot glue gun plugged in, a good pair of scissors nearby. So let me show you the focal point for today's winter wreath. I've got this super cute wooden snowflake. I actually got this from Hobby Lobby. And this guy is about 12 inches or so in diameter. And my vision is to place this guy on the side. And then we're going to have lots of winter greenery sprays throughout our wreath. We might add a couple of cute owls in. We'll see. I'm going to go ahead and cut off this twine hanger that came with it. We won't be needing that. I'm going to go ahead and prep our snowflake. So to do so, because this guy's a little bit heavier, I'm going to grab my crafting stapler. Guys, if you are not familiar with crafting staplers, they're basically a heavier duty version of a desktop stapler, but not quite as robust as a garage stapler. And they are great for stapling pipe cleaners or floral wire to the back of heavier wooden embellishments. And I just grabbed a couple of 20 gauge floral wire stems that we will staple onto the back of our snowflake. We'll do one towards the top and one towards the bottom of this central spine here. And so I'm just going to lay that down about 1 inch below the top of our snowflake and staple that guy in place. Then I like to run a little bitty bead of glue right over that staple, just as some added security. We'll do the same thing to the bottom. And add another dollop of glue right on top of that staple. I'm just going to set this guy off to the side so that those glue dollops can dry, and we'll start adding some greenery in. So let me show you what I've grabbed. I actually just grabbed a boatload of all of my leftover winter and greenery picks that I had grabbed for the Christmas season, and we'll just see what we use. So I've got this really pretty thick winter flower with some beaded embellishments. I've got a couple of pine picks. I've got a pretty large white frosted branch pick, a couple of winter branches with some mini pine cones, and then I have a couple pine picks with pine cones that are not frosted. So again, I'm just using up some of my leftover Christmas winter stash here. This is actually going to be our last winter themed wreath for the season. Once we come back from the Christmas break, we'll dive right into Valentine's Day. Just a little pro tip for you guys. Nearly always florals come on a wired stem, so it's important to remember that you can trim them down to size if you need to do so. You can separate them out by trimming off your pieces individually, and they will bend and shape the way that you want them to. So feel free to really work your florals and your greenery until it's just the way that you like. And also, if you are new to wreath making, you will soon discover that florals and greenery are nearly always going to be the most expensive part of your design process. And so just a little tip for you, Hobby Lobby has all of their florals on sale for at least 40% off every other week. So just be mindful of those sales when it's time for you to shop for florals. All right, guys, I'm going to put these off to the side and we will dive in. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim off these frosted branches. I've just got one of these picks left. I'm going to use my heavy duty Work Pro cutters to trim these guys down. And I'm just going to trim them branch by branch. That gave us about 20 pieces or so. I've got several of these individual winter fern picks as well. They're very, very thin and wispy, and they come on a pretty long, about a 6-inch wire spine, so they're really good for manipulating and maneuvering as well. So let me show you my vision here before we start adding them in. So again, we're going to add our snowflake on the left-hand side of our grapevine wreath, and so I want that greenery to come up and around the top and the bottom part of our grapevine base. And so we need to leave about a 7 or 8 inch space on that left hand side that is open and free so that we can add our snowflake in once we get our greenery bits in. So I'm going to trim off a couple of inches of these winter fern pieces first, and we're going to start with those. You want to make sure as you trim down your stems, guys, because they're going to be various different lengths, you just want a good couple of inches to add your glue to anchor your florals into your wreath base, but you don't want them so long that they poke out the sides or back of your base. So we're going to just trim them and add them in. And again, I'm just running about an inch or so bead of glue, and then I'll nestle those guys down in. All right, we've got our first layer of greenery added in. As you can see, I just went in a scattered pattern, kind of back and forth. I've added 10 pieces in total, and I've whisked them up around the top and then down around the bottom. And you'll soon notice, friends, if this is your first time making a grapevine wreath with me, that what I do to the top is also what I do to the bottom, generally speaking. Let's move on to our next greenery bits. So I'm going to leave these 2 branches intact. All I'm going to do is pop off our tags here. And I'm going to fluff it up, kind of like you do a Christmas tree, guys. It doesn't really matter where you get your florals, from a store or an online retailer. They always need a little bit of tender, loving care. And so I just fluff them up, make sure everything's standing to attention and is nice and spread out. I'm going to trim off about 2 or so inches of that stem because that guy was pretty long, and I'm going to bend that just a little bit so it flows with the curve. I'm going to find a good spot for that guy. And then once you have it in the place that you'd like to see that in your wreath, just fluff it out again so it's flowing nicely. And then we're going to give it a good dollop of glue. We don't have to be so careful about hiding our glue over in this corner, guys, because we'll soon be adding a snowflake to cover that. I'm going to do the same thing and add another piece below. Now that we've got the beginnings of our base in place, let's go ahead and get our snowflake added in. That guy is nice and dry. I like to flip it over and just give a twist or two to my floral wire stems, just so that they don't get squirrely. And we're going to run our floral wire right through the grapevine. Sometimes you have to wrap it around if your grapevine is super dense. I don't think that our weave here is super tight. And so my preference is always to run the floral wire through and not around, because then you don't see. So we're going to poke this wire right through our grapevine. And then you're going to just grab your needle nose pliers, pinch those ends together so they're nice and taut, and curl that guy back into your wreath, just in case someone happens to grab your wreath right here. They won't get poked. And now we're going to do the same thing with that upper level. Once you've got both of those ends trimmed off and tucked back in, I like to put just a single dollop of glue right on top of where that floral wire meets the grapevine. It protects those sharp edges so that you or your customer doesn't get poked, and it gives a little bit more stability to that wire. So we'll give this a couple minutes to dry, and then I'll meet you back here. How stinking cute is this coming along, guys? I think we're going to go ahead and add a cute little furry snow owl. He's pretty big. I would guess about 7 inches tall and about 5 inches in diameter. Now you can attach these guys in a variety of different ways. You can either grab some floral wire or wrap the floral wire around the feet. Luckily they're wired. And then weave that floral wire through your grapevine base at whatever point you'd like to anchor him down. You could hot glue him if you've got the appropriate space. I just happen to have a pretty large weave of grapevine branch right here, so I'm going to just tuck his feet right in that branch and then glue those guys in. His little talon right down into the weave of my grapevine. I gave it 4 full squirts of glue. And we're going to give him a few minutes to dry. So next up, we'll add our 2 winter branches with the pine cones. This one I've already trimmed and fluffed. As you can see, I trimmed off about 2 inches of that stem. I spread apart my branches and pulled those pine cones forward and just kind of spread them out. We're going to add this guy just underneath our snowflake area with several generous dollops of glue. For these wider branches and picks, guys, really make sure that you're doing a dry run to see where they're going to fit before you trim and glue. You guys, this is already looking super cute. I'm going to go ahead and take this soft, flexible pine bush and trim off these pieces. So we should have about 4 or so. Then we're going to nestle those in behind our snowflake. What you don't want to do is neglect those areas behind your main focal point. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll see how many we add. So I'm just going to run some hot glue after I spread these out a bit and tuck these guys right in behind that snowflake. Is a little bit further back just to continue on with giving that guy some depth. So make sure as you're adding your greenery pieces in, friends, that it's not only nice and full front facing, but also along those sides. All right. I do have some extra bits of pine and greenery off to the side here, but before we add any more of that in, let's go ahead and add in our wintry white branches. And so just like before, friends, what we do to the top, we'll do to the bottom. And I'm just going to tuck several pieces in at varying spots, all flowing in the same direction, So clockwise for the top and counterclockwise for the bottom. You guys, how stinking cute is this? Oh my goodness. So as you can see, we've really woven all of our different greenery bits and the white snowy frosty branches all together, so it's really becoming super cohesive and adorable. The last thing I'm going to add in, I've got a partial heavy duty frosted mini bush here that I'm going to trim down into individual pieces. It should give us 3 or 4 pieces. We're just going to tuck them in up here where it's a little bit bare, and maybe 1 or 2 down here by our winter snow owl's feet. And this winter beauty is finished. Thank you for spending time with me today, friends. Happy crafting.